Hey y'all! So I finally come back from vacation and I decided to try a new format for my videos. So the next few will be the experimental ones in that I will read them in my own voice. This time I handpicked some older stories from Reddit, which I believe are outstanding. So without further ado, let's get into the first story. Our first story is entitled I sent an entitled mother to the emergency room because she grabbed my girlfriend. I posted this story to entitled parents and figured it might be a good fit here too. I made some edits in hopes of making this a little easier to read. This story happened about a week ago. I got a $25 gift card from my mum to the local cinema. So my girlfriend and I decided to go see How to Train Your Dragon Lost World. For context, my girlfriend's a petite beauty from Venezuela, so people sometimes mistake her for a child, but it's usually very obvious that she's an adult by the sound of her voice and the way she acts. It usually results in awkward or sometimes funny moments, but this was not one of those moments. Anyways, we get to the theater without any problems, and we patiently waited in line to purchase our movie tickets. We started talking about how to train your dragon and what dragons we would want to have. She loves Astrid's dragon Stormfly because her favorite color is blue and she likes its ability to shoot spikes. The way she marvels at everything we have here is so adorable, but I also understand that it's because she, in her own words, grew up without nothing. We get to the front of the line and I start purchasing our tickets. I feel a really thick finger tap me on the shoulder. Enter the entitled parent. Entitled mother. Hey, can you help me out? This lady's tone instantly set off some red flags for me. People who are condescending and or overly nice generally want something out of you. Me. With what? Entitled mother. Well, I really want to see that dragon movie with my little boy, and we just don't have enough money today. Her kid is completely silent, and he looks like he's 6 to 7 at the oldest. Unfortunately, me and my girlfriend are both broke college kids, so we didn't have too much money to spare. Me. We don't have money to spare, sorry. Maybe someone else can spare some change. I thought that maybe that would get her to leave us alone. But nope. Entitled mum. You have money. You're using a gift card. You can just buy the tickets for you and the little girl with cash. Me to the employee while mentally face palming. Can you just take my card real quick, please? She takes my gift card and swipes it. Entitled mum. Stop! She stole my gift card. I look at entitled mum like she's on drugs or something. The employee looks at the gift card, which has my name on it, and my name is not a gender-neutral one, or Karen. Employee. Ma'am, I'm sorry. This might just be a misunderstanding. His gift card does appear to have his name on it. Entitled mum. I want to speak to your manager, Peach. I can't believe you defend a thief. He just wrote his name on it. Employee. Okay, please wait 1 second, ma'am. She was right in front of us for the entire exchange between us three. Girlfriend tugs on my sleeve. Babe, what are they saying? English is her second language, so she still has trouble understanding people sometimes. Entitled mum has a look of pure disgust on her face. Me to girlfriend. Ella es loco. I was being intentionally incorrect with my Spanish. Entitled mum. What? I should have known you're a lucky pedophile. She was screaming loudly and people were starting to stare at us. Me. What? I was just shocked that she would say such a thing to my face. I guess she thought my girlfriend was a child. I glance over at my girlfriend, who is starting to look scared and confused. All she knows is that the physical embodiment of insanity is standing before us. Entitled mum. I won't get your mass arrested for raping that coffee skin illegal if you just hand over your lucky gift card. Me. No, get out of our face. The kid hasn't uttered a peep throughout this entire exchange yet, but he looks scared. How lucky dare you make my baby cry? He wasn't. I'm making sure you get arrested and taking your gift card. She reaches for my gift card on the counter, but the lumbering land whale is too slow. I grab it. She's screaming at me to hand over my gift card, but I refuse and play keep away. After what felt like a minute of her screaming at me and calling us both all sorts of racial slurs, she changes tactics. She grabs my girlfriend. Entitled Mum, I'm taking you away from this rapist. My girlfriend's eyes are wide. She struggles and lets out a blood-curdling scream. Hearing that scream was all I needed to see red. I elbowed Entitled Mum with all my might. She hit the ground hard. She was out cold, with blood trickling out of her mouth. The only thing that stopped me from going further was her kid's presence. Everyone in the vicinity went silent as Entitled Mum continued to stiffly lay on the ground. Surprisingly, nobody tried to attack me afterwards. The employee was visibly shocked by what just happened. My girlfriend was sitting on the ground crying, but thankfully unharmed. I tried to comfort her, and Entitled Mum's kid started to cry too. Security came a few moments later, followed shortly by the manager. They are greeted by the scene of me kneeling on the ground next to my crying girlfriend, a little kid crying a few feet away next to his unconscious mother, all surrounded by onlookers. They immediately called an ambulance for Entitled Mum. It's clear that she's badly injured. The employee and I explained what happened. The other staff were thankfully nice and understanding and offered us free tickets, but we just took vouchers to another showing instead. My girlfriend just wanted to go home. I felt bad for the kid after what he just witnessed. I gave him a candy bar I was saving for the movie, which seemed to help him relax a bit, but I could tell he was still scared of me. I apologized for hurting his mum and told him that it's wrong to hit people, but sometimes you have to in order to protect the ones you like. I sincerely hope that he doesn't grow up to be like his mother. I'm not sure what happened to the kid. I gave a police statement later that night, which earned me the nickname as the elbow man at the local department. My girlfriend does not want to press charges, and she's firm on this. I later heard that I knocked out 4 of Entitled's mum's teeth, dislocated the left side of her jaw, and gave her a concussion. She likely got the concussion from her impact on the ground. The best part is that I'm guaranteed to win the case against her if she tries to sue me, and I know that she'll have to eat only liquid foods for quite some time, assuming that the info I heard is correct. Try to drug and rape an innocent girl at a party? No, not while I'm here. So, to put it simply, I was a little shit as a kid. I used to steal from stores and family, swear and throw things at random people walking down the street, was smoking from the age of 12 and didn't give a shit about anyone but my friends. They were my real family, or so I thought, and a group of all 5 of us would cause trouble every single lucky day. My parents, though in my later years have told me they should have been more effective in their discipline, really weren't to blame. I was just a mixed up kid. I used to think that doing all this stuff made me cool. I can't really describe how superior I felt when I made grown adults afraid of me, but it made me feel powerful, and power was something I craved when I was younger. I could go on and on about my sins, but the fact is I was just locked in the head. I've made amends where I could, to who I could, but you're not here for self-flagellation, you're here for the revenge. So, long story short, when I was 16, my parents finally had enough, and despite all my tantrums and screaming, and even some physical violence against my dad, they decided to put me in a school for troubled youth. I call it a school, but what it really was a military institution that taught discipline in the most brutally effective ways, while throwing in some literacy and numeracy classes along the way. Without going into much detail, I say that this school changed me. While aggressive, violent, cocky, and near homicidal when I was first dumped on their doorstep, the men who ran this camp broke me down. I was there for just over a year. No phone calls, no visits home, no access to the outside world. For 1 whole year I had this camp and these counselors. These real-life hard-ass men taught me just how much of a shit stain I really was. By the end of my second summer, I was a changed kid. I had fought and screamed and gotten my ass kicked more times than I could count, but eventually I was beaten down. These men taught me that real men simply don't act the way I did, and that the type of path I was headed down would lead me either in jail or dead. They were brutally honest about it, especially this one counselor, Jay. By the end of my stay, I considered Jay a second father. Though I hated him at first for making me feel inferior, he really did me a favor teaching me how toxic my behavior was, and to this day I think of him as something of a hero. He was the main person who deemed me ready to return home. But the backstory is getting really long, so let's go to the real story. When I returned home, I had changed from an abusive little prick to a somewhat civilized young man, ready to take on my last year of high school. I was nervous to go back, since I had adapted to the disciplinary school lifestyle, but I was also excited. I missed my friends, and hoped they would just accept me back despite the fact that I hadn't spoken to any of them in over a year. And to my relief, I was accepted back with open arms. One of my closest friends had moved states since I'd been away, but the other three were ecstatic to see me. Over the next few weeks I settled down. I didn't spend a lot of time with them outside of school. My parents were kind of testing how much I'd matured since returning, and were setting boundaries on when I could go out, how long I could stay out, and where I could go, etc. I was determined to prove to them I wasn't the same luck-up that had ruined their lives all those years, so I followed their rules, and so only really talked to my friends during school. All of this is relevant because of what happened next. I had joined a school football team all three of my friends were part of, and one evening after practice, all my teammates were in the gym, sweaty and dirty but pleased with ourselves. I was laughing and chatting with my three best friends so much I didn't really notice that we were the last left in the gym, but that's when the conversation started turning bad. One of my friends, I'll call him Friend 1 for simplicity, started telling me about a college party they were all planning on going to, and how they'd been crashing college parties for a few months now, since it was easy access to girls and booze. I was hesitant about it because I didn't think my mum and dad would agree to let me go. But then Friend 1 started talking about this girl he was planning on inviting. A girl who went to the same school as us, but not one I thought Friend 1 had any relationship with. I knew her, but I didn't know her. He started to tell both my other friends and me that he'd been trying to get her into bed for a while, and she kept making excuses, so he planned on taking her to the party and finally smashing. When I asked him, in a joking way, "What makes you so sure she won't reject you again?" he looked me dead in the eye and said as casually as you please, the most chilling sentence I have ever heard in my entire life. "I'm just gonna slip something in her drink. It'll loosen her up, no problem." At first I just kind of awkwardly laughed, thinking it was some lucked up joke, but they weren't laughing with me. When I asked him if he was serious, he told me he was sick of her bullshit games and knew she was just stringing him along, and that the pills would just make things easier. I could not believe my lucky ears. I excused myself from the conversation pretty quickly and practically bolted home, most likely driving through several stop signs, but I really don't remember. I spent the whole night convincing myself my friends were just messing around. A few more days pass and the conversation in the locker room is all but forgotten, though they hadn't shut up about the party and kept insisting that I just sneak out and join them. I got called a ninny repeatedly for telling them I wasn't going because of my parents, but again I just brushed it off. Then the feces finally hits the fan. During yet another after-school training session, we all end up the last in the lockers, and Friend 1 does something I never would have expected in 1,000 years. All three of them have been talking about the party this whole time, then Friend 1 starts rummaging through his gym bag. He tells us to look at this and tosses Friend 2 a small bag of little pink pills. Immediately I feel blood drain from my face, and like bombs going off in my head, and a voice in my mind is screaming, "Holy feces, this is really happening. This is serious. Holy lucky feces." It's really hard to describe what I was feeling when friend one started going into detail about how he planned on inviting the girl to the party, slipping something into her drink, and making use of one of the frat boys' bedrooms for a few hours. I was sick. Like literally could have hurled everything from my stomach all over the floor as I listened to all three of them talk about how awesome the party was going to be, after just describing how they were planning to rape a girl. I couldn't take it, and again I ran off. I actually did end up puking late that night, going over and over in my head what the luck I had just witnessed. I almost couldn't believe it. These three boys had been my friends for 15 years. I thought of them as my own family, thought I knew them better than anyone. But 1 year away, and this... I'll tell you that I actually broke down crying that night. I'm not ashamed to admit it. What I am ashamed of is how long I took to actually get a grip and handle it. I knew I should have told someone, but in some locked up way, my loyalties were still screwed. Don't crucify me for it. I know what I should have done, but I was 17 and these were my best friends. I didn't want them to get into trouble, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't let this feces go down. So instead of reporting all I'd heard to an adult like a normal lucky person, I decided I'd sort it out all on my own. So I went to friend one and told him not to do what he had planned. Told him he was stupid and dangerous and would ruin both his life and the life of the girl he was planning on drugging. He didn't even blink. He got right in my face and told me that the school I got sent to had turned me into a ninny, that he hated how much I'd changed and had been trying to change me back with friend 2 and friend 3. He even told me how they'd been talking about me behind my back, and how they'd planned to give me a turn on the girl once friend 1 was done with her, just to show me what I was missing out on. Then he said something I'll never forget. He told me, word for word, "I'm doing that little snitch a favor. She's a lucky virgin. After this party, your mum won't be the only one finally getting some." I punched him. We fought and we both got sent home on suspension for fighting. I could not lucky believe it. I was seething. My best friend had said that to me. My best friend had told me he was going to rape an innocent girl at a party, and I was a ninny for not wanting to join in. I was disgusted, sickened to my core, and I was done with him. My parents were disappointed I had gotten suspended so shortly after coming home, but I just sat quietly while my mum cried and my dad screamed at me. I know now that I should have told him, but after what friend 1 said to me, I had this insane notion in my head that I was going to get him back all on my own. And now, to the revenge. After a weekend of being grounded, I went back to school, and the first thing I did was seek out friend 1. He was about as bashed up as I was, but he was sporting a nice black eye from where I'd hit him in the face. Friend 2 and friend 3 were standing with him, and they all glared at me as I approached them. Then I did something that made me feel sick. I apologized to him. I told him I was sorry I hit him, and that he was right. I had changed. And I hated what that school had done to me, and I wanted to go back to being the old me, and surprisingly, they all bought it. Friend 1 and I even hugged it out, and I put the cherry on top when I told them I'd be coming to the party. Now for my dumb teenage plan. First, I started recording them whenever we were alone. I wanted to get everything they said about the party and the girl they were planning on victimizing on tape. I knew I needed some kind of proof, or it would be just my word against theirs. And after a few days I had gotten more than enough, but I wasn't done. No, my stupid self had a plan, and I was going to fulfill it to the fullest. So the next thing I did was track down the girl, take her aside and tell her everything. She was pissed and scared, but I begged her not to go to the police or tell anyone. I know now that was stupid as well, but for some reason she listened to me. I had a plan, a crazy, stupid plan to teach them all a lesson. So I told her to tell friend 1 that she was going to meet him at the party, but to just stay home so she could be safe. Later that day, friend 1 started bragging about how the girl had accepted his invitation and everything was going to plan. And I sat there, phone half out of my pocket, recording the whole damn thing. So, night of the party finally rolls around, and I sneak out because, you know, I was grounded. I think it's worth mentioning that I wasn't filled with vindication or self-righteousness throughout the whole night. I was second-guessing myself, I had doubts, but in some strange way I felt betrayed. These 3 boys had been my brothers since before I could throw a punch, and I felt betrayed that they had gone down this road. What locked me in the head even more was the possibility that I might have been just like them if my parents hadn't sent me away. It was a strange moment of realization to come in the middle of a crowded frat house, surrounded by drunk idiots. But you take what life throws at you. So the night goes on, and friend 1 is getting steadily more frustrated that the girl he invited hadn't shown up. I'd made sure to keep him in my sights for the whole night, not wanting him to decide that any old girl would do if he couldn't take the one he wanted. I kept an eye on all of them, watching as they drank and drank while I stayed as level-headed as possible with some water in a beer can. When midnight came, all 3 of them were plastered. I knew that all the girls at the party would be safe by then. By this time the crowd was dying down, and a few people who couldn't hold their liquor were already passed out around the house. And now was my time to shine. While all 3 of them were occupied with a drinking game, I hunted in friend 1's bag and found the bag of little pink pills. Here's where I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but I'll tell you anyway. I slipped 1 pill into 3 beers each and handed them to my friends, and then waited. It didn't take long before all 3 were passed out on the floor, along with quite a few other party guests. I then took out a black permanent marker pen from my bag and wrote "Rapist" on all 3 of their foreheads, took pictures and immediately uploaded them on our school Facebook page, so everyone who attended our school would see. Admittedly, I didn't think this part through, since I not only did this in full view of every other conscious person at the party, but also knew the photos wouldn't last long on the school site before they would be taken down. But since it was a small school in a small town, I didn't doubt that a whole bunch of people would see it before a teacher removed the photos, and that's exactly what I wanted. Next came the recordings. When I got home, I got a verbal bludgeoning from my parents for sneaking out, but they stopped when I finally told them what had been happening. They were both shocked and a little disbelieving. But when I played them both the recordings I had saved on my phone, they were just as sickened as I was. I was silent in the car as my dad drove me to the police station, receiving a lecture about how I should have just come to him in the first place, and what I'd done at the party wasn't necessary. But I felt like it was at the time. My phone had already blown up with other students commenting on the pictures of my 3 ex-friends with "rapist" written on their foreheads. And while a lot just laughed at them, many were questioning if there was any truth to it. It was what I wanted. I wanted everyone to know who they really were, so they had nowhere to hide. The hours at the police station were admittedly very scary. I was still debating with myself whether or not I did the right thing, but my friends had chosen their own fate. I still felt hurt and betrayed they'd allowed themselves to become this way. And even though I felt a little guilt for potentially ruining their future, I did what I thought had to be done. And long story short, the recordings were enough to get them all on charges of planning to commit a crime. Since the girl friend 1 had been planning on drugging had been named, her parents were understandably furious and demanded all 3 of my ex-friends be arrested. I would have been too, were it not for the girl telling her parents and the courts that I had warned her to stay away from friend 1 and the party. I was charged for my use of an illegal substance since I admitted to using the pills on my 3 ex-friends, and also for battery, since the permanent marker was seen as a form of assault. But luckily I never got jail time. I did get a boatload of community service though. All 3 of them were tried as adults in a case of attempted rape, but only friend 1 got actual jail time, since he was the one who'd gotten the pills and was the only one who admitted to wanting to use them. The other 2 only got probation and community service for being accessories, but were completely shunned in our town. No one ever let them forget. I was prepared for the backlash, ready to be jumped by them or something, but strangely enough, I think seeing friend 1 go to jail for what he did knocked some sense into the 2 of them, and they wised up enough to actually get into college without football scholarships, since they were both kicked off the team. They never came anywhere near me again, which surprised me, but I no longer cared. In my mind, my friends were dead to me long before all of this went down, and by the time I moved away to college, it was all behind me. I'm in my final year of college now, and I still think about those 3 sometimes. I think about how if my parents hadn't sent me to their special school, I may have ended up just like them. Oddly enough, I do miss them at times, but I know it's the memory of the kids I miss, not the men they turned into. I thank my parents continuously for sending me to that place, and even got some approval from Jay when I felt man enough to tell him what happened. I don't know what will happen to friend 1 when he gets out of jail, but a part of me hopes he learns his lesson and moves on with his life, like I have. Jay called me a few days ago just to check up, and I told him this whole story, which is kind of why I'm now telling the internet. I guess the moral is to stand up to your friends when you know they're doing wrong, but maybe not in the stupid way I did. Always involve others more qualified to deal with situations you're not sure about, even if you're a headstrong, stubborn as hell teenager who thinks you know everything. Well, someone who's not me thinks those 3 could have used some dildos to go with the pills. I hope you enjoyed today's stories and the new format. Please, if you did, don't forget to like and share your opinion in the comment section below. All original stories links can be found in the description. So have a nice day and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye!